Good afternoon. Today is the 9th of January, and exactly 6 years ago, I made two dreadful videos on the channel, both looking at the sales of cars in this country in 2018. Now it's 2025. Let's have a look and compare the top 10 best-selling cars of 2018 and 2025 and look at some of the winners and losers of the UK car market last year and in 2018. So today I'm recording three videos. One video is about the top 10 best-selling cars of December 2024. Second one is about the top 10 best-selling cars of 2024 as a whole. And this one is about the top 10 best-selling cars of 2018 versus 2024. Mercifully, this is a shorter video than the others because the information I gave in the original videos, which I don't suggest you look up because they are absolutely, utterly dreadful and I'm ashamed of them, is a bit less. So we don't have to sort of have me talking too much. Some of you will prefer that. So let's look first of all at the top 10 bestsellers in 2018. Some of these cars aren't even on sale anymore, and the top one that's not on sale anymore is the Ford Fiesta. This is the Mark 8 at the time, and it had 96,000 sales in 2018. Why have Ford stopped selling this car? Like, everybody loved the Fiesta. I love the Fiesta. Mark 7 is probably my favourite Fiesta, really, but lots of the others are fantastic as well. I'm trying to think of any Fiesta that I don't like. I don't think there are any, really. Yeah, 96,000 sales, by far the top-selling car in this country of 2018. Second was the Golf. The Golf's actually still in the top 10, which is remarkable because there's not that many from 2018 that still are. But the Golf sold 65,000 cars in 2018. This is approximate, actually. There's I think it's slightly less than that, but it's just easy to round these figures up or down. The third is Vauxhall Corsa. Now, this is a car that actually took the Fiesta's place a couple of years ago. The top seller, I think it's 2022 or 2023. But the Corsa is no longer in the top 10. Back in the day, Corsas were the Corsa in 2018 sold more cars than the top seller on this list entirely in 2024. 53,000 cars. The top seller last year was only 48,000. So it shows you like how popular some of these were. I mean, it's very close now. The next one for Nissan Qashqai at fourth place, 51,000 sales. But Nissan's actually in third place this year, but it's a lot down on that. It just shows you kind of how popular some of these cars sort of were. The next is the Focus at 50,000 in fifth position, which Focus is no longer in the top 10, and it's been discontinued this year. The Polo was in the top 10, though. It actually still is, although the position's a bit different. It's 45,000 sales approximately in 2018, number 6. Then there's a Mini hatch. Now, the Mini has appeared in the top 10 for December 2024, but not for the year as a whole. We'll get into that in the other video. A position was Mercedes A-Class. A-Class was selling huge amounts of units back in 2018, 19, 20. It was a very popular car at the time. Now you can still buy one. I don't see a lot of them anymore, though, which is interesting. It was about 43,500. The Mini hatch was 45,000. And then the ninth position was a Ford Kuga, which actually was coming to the end of its life in 2018. There was a new one that came out in the middle of 2019, which was still today. I think it's the same. Yeah, it's the same car, just facelifted. About 43.5. And then the 10th, this is something I said in the video back in the day, the Sportage, which actually had just entered the top 10 for the first time. Now let's get on to the top 10 from 2024. So, first place, the Fiesta's obviously not around anymore. It's discontinued last year. It's the Ford Puma. I thought the Puma wasn't going to be the top-selling car for 2024 at all. I thought the Sportage would beat it, but it hasn't. But you can see literally half the number of cars sold, 96 versus 48,000, now leaves you at the top of the list. So it just goes to show you that there's actually something going on here, which is remarkable. Second place is the Sportage. Now, this is completely predictable. You know, the Sportage sold 36,000 cars back in 2018. It sold 47,000 cars last year. This is no surprise to anyone. The next position is no surprise either. There's a Qashqai. Back in 2018, it sold 51,000 cars. Actually, last year it was less. It was 42,000. That's still enough for third position. Fourth was Nissan Duke. Not a car I particularly like, but Nissan sort of was having quite a bad year in 2018. We'll get onto that a bit later, but they're also having a bad year now. So interesting to see actually how those two bad years compare, with Nissan sales remaining very strong actually in both years, despite globally being quite weak. Then the Tesla Model Y. This is a car that didn't exist at all in 2018. And actually electric car sales were not strong for probably a couple of years after that. But the big turning point in this country, electric car sales, was probably the middle of 2019 when the MG ZS was launched. I was actually present there. I was a guest of the Planet Auto YouTube channel. And they invited me to go along, and I did. And I didn't realise at the time how important that was. But basically everything started to change really in the electric car market at that time. Around then, not just because of the MG, but other models as well. Next, we've got the Golf. Now, the Golf back in 2018 was the second position with 65,000 sales. The Golf last year, again, about half. It's about 32,000 sales. I say sales and registrations, it's just easier for me to say sales. So that's interesting as well, isn't it? That's enough for sixth position. Then the Hyundai, I must say Hyundai because I will get told off if I don't now. Tucson. Very similar car to the Sportage, but for some reason we absolutely love our Kias in this country, not so much for Hyundais, which probably annoys people at Hyundai a lot, but there we go. Then the MGHS, a car which didn't exist in 2018, it was launched in 2019, and actually the new model that's come out this year is quite good. It's better than the old one. There's some bits I miss about the old model, and MG is a brand, maybe I'm not as fond of them as I was back in the day when I made that video, because we owned an MG3 at the time. But yeah, nevertheless, it sells the same as a Golf. And the, it sells about the same as a Volvo XC40, which is in ninth position. The MGHS, 30,000 cars. Then you have the Volvo XC40 at 30,000. It actually outsells the Polo now. Would you believe that? Outsells the Polo. The Volvo XC40 outsells the Volkswagen Polo, which is at 29,000 at 10th position. Let's have a look actually at one particular statistic comparing 2018 and 2024. And because I took the information back in the day in January 2019 when I made that list the first time, I only focused on the market share changes. So that's what I've got to do. This will make the video considerably shorter, not having to compare every single bit of information like I would have done. But this will give you an idea of how things were going. So the manufacturer that had increased their sales the most in 2018, and bear in mind the SUV was not out at the time, that was a hugely successful car for MG. In 2018, their sales were up by 104%, which, you know, it was still quite a small amount. It wasn't a lot in comparison to what it is now, but it was a sign of a brand on the ascendancy. Now, things have considerably slowed down in the last year. In 2024, the increase in sales was only about 0.3%. Mitsubishi, they actually done really well. They're not in the country anymore, of course. They pulled out in 2022, but they actually went up by 31%. Subaru were up by 17.25%. Their sales last year only increased by 0.42%. Abarth, like last year, actually had quite a good year. They were up by 26% in 2018. Last year, they were up by 16%. Seat, also very similar pattern. They had a good year in 2018. They're up by 12%. We owned a Seat Toledo at the time as well. It's the first car that ever appeared on the channel, the first video that ever appeared on the channel. And yes, even in the very first video, we didn't talk about diesels. So there you go. Last year, even better, but up by 14%. McLaren, for some reason, did appear in the statistics in 2018. They don't anymore. They were up by 10%. Volvo were up by 9%. They're now up by 32% in the last year. It's probably why the Volvo XC40 was in the top 10 for the best-selling cars of the year. Jaguar, surprisingly, despite everything that's been going on at Jaguar, their sales were up by 4% in 2018, and last year 17%. It's about all that's been happening, and all that's been surrounding Jaguar. Their sales were still up by 17% last year. Kia were very, very consistent. They were up by 4% in both years. There you go. The next one was Mazda. Now, Mazda was the last manufacturer on the list in 2018 to have registered an increase. It was actually about 1%. Whereas last year, I love Mazda actually. I love so many of their cars, particularly the 3 and the 2 that's their own model rather than one that's based on the Yaris Hybrid. I love those 2 cars, and actually some of the others are really good too. But Mazdas are really hard to get hold of for review. They're very, very difficult cars. I really want a new one. Used ones aren't so bad. Toyota, in 2018, they'd had a 6% drop. That was up by 8% last year, both drops. Aston Martin were again on the list in 2018. They're not last year. Peugeot, in 2018, they were down by 1.3%, but actually last year, they're up by 10%. Mini, they had a very similar sort of sales year. They were down by 1.7% in 2018. Last year, down by 1%. BMW, same as Mini, actually, down by 1.7%, but this has really changed, hasn't it? BMW were up by 12% in the last year. BMW actually are one of the top brands now in this country. They are one of the top selling brands in this country, and they consistently go in the top 5. So there you go. Honda were down by 2.5% in 2018, up by 21% actually last year. Honda are a superb range of cars. I think it's one of the strongest range of cars. Kia is also really strong in my opinion, but Honda are also very good. And they deserve to be up by 21% in 2024. Volkswagen, they were down by 2.5%, and now they're up by 2.6%. Citroën, they were down by 3.6%, down again last year by 2%. Dacia, this is a bit of a change. They're down by 4% in 2018. They're now up by 10%, which is no surprise. Now, the biggest increase actually of 2024 was Jeep, but in 2018, they were down by 4%. I don't quite know why this has happened. It could be to do with the Jeep Avenger, but I don't know. They've not really had many new models out recently, Jeep, at all. Suzuki, they were down by 4.5% in 2018, last year by 13%. Mercedes-Benz, they were down by 5% in 2018, but now they're up by 17%. Land Rover is very similar. They're down by 6% and now up by 15%. Skoda were down by 7%, and now they're up by 12%. Vauxhall, this is one of the biggest changes. Vauxhall were already going down a bit in terms of the sales in 2018, and now they're down by 21% as opposed to 9%. Lotus were on the list in 2018, they're not now. Renault, they had a very, very good year in 2024. They were up by 36%. Back in 2018, it was down by 10%. Porsche, they were down by 11.5% in 2018, and they were down again last year by 17.5%. Ford, exactly the same, down by 11.5%. Last year, though, dear me, they really, really shouldn't have got rid of the Fiesta, many people's opinions. They're down by 24%, despite having the best-selling car in the country. Bentley were down by 12% in 2018 and down by 30% last year. I don't know why. Alfa Romeo, this is a bit of a turnaround. They were down by 17% in 2018 and they're up by 8% in 2024. Audi, which is surprising actually, they were a very, very popular brand at the moment, but we're down by 18% in 2018 and down by 11% in 2024. Fiat, they were down by 20% in 2018. A lot of the Fiat Chrysler cars were not doing well at the time. Still down by 14% last year. Now SsangYong, this is where it gets interesting because SsangYong aren't called that anymore. They're called KGM, and so for me to compare the relative sales is more difficult because we've not got a percentage figure for this, but KGM last year sold 17 cars, and in 2018 SsangYong sold I can't remember exactly how many, but I think it's about 2% decrease in 2024, whereas back in 2018 it was 23%. Maserati were down by 24% at the time, they're now down by 4%. So 47%, it's even worse. 47%, they don't really make many cars for right-hand drive markets at all, do they? Smart was really bad. That's one of the reasons they discontinued the brand, I think, about 2020, 2021. They were down by 26%, but they're now up by 152%, which is excellent. Nissan were down by 32% in 2018, despite having the Qashqai in the top 5. But last year, despite all the stuff we've been talking about recently about Nissan and how they're doing and all that sort of thing, they were up by 12%. There we go, both the Duke and the Qashqai in the top 10. DS, I'm really surprised DS are actually still in the market in this country, because they've not been doing well for a really long time. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but there we go. They're down by 45% in 2018, and in 2024 it was even worse. The worst performing manufacturer of all, though, actually at the time in 2018, was Infiniti, who do not sell cars in this country anymore at all. I wonder why that is. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we shall see you again soon for some more surprisingly interesting statistics.